Security! This woman refuses to leave first class. The white businessman's voice cut through the cabin like a blade. His designer watch caught the overhead light as he slammed his palm against the armrest. I want her removed from this section immediately. Keisha Washington adjusted her navy blazer and remained seated in 2B, her expression unchanged. The man in 2A mid-50s, expensive suit, wedding ring that probably cost more than most people's cars, stood over her like a judge delivering a verdict. "Finally, someone's doing something about this," his wife whispered loud enough for half the cabin to hear. Flight attendant Ashley approached reluctantly, tablet trembling in her hands. Behind her, 2 security officers appeared at the aircraft door. Phones emerged from pockets. The show was about to begin. Have you ever been kicked out of somewhere you rightfully belonged, simply because of how you looked? 30 minutes earlier, American Airlines Flight 447 had been just another Tuesday evening departure from JFK to Atlanta. Now it felt like a courtroom with Brad Morrison as the self-appointed prosecutor. "I don't care what her ticket says," Brad announced to anyone listening. "Get her out of here." Ashley clutched her tablet tighter. "Sir, if you could please—" "Please what?" Brad's voice rose another octave. "I paid $2,400 for first class. I shouldn't have to deal with this." He gestured at Keisha like she was a piece of misplaced luggage. Jennifer Morrison pulled out her iPhone, angling it toward Keisha's seat. "This is going straight to Facebook," she muttered. "People need to see what's happening to air travel these days." Keisha opened her briefcase, sleek black leather, with a small gold seal near the handle that most passengers wouldn't notice. She retrieved a folder and placed it calmly on her lap, fingers drumming once against the armrest. "Ma'am," Ashley's voice cracked slightly, "we do have available seats in economy class. Perhaps there's been some confusion with your booking?" The suggestion hung in the air like smoke. 3 rows back, Mike Brooks in seat 3C discreetly opened Instagram Live. The notification read, "Live from Flight 447, drama in first class." Within seconds, viewers started trickling in. Brad stepped into the aisle, his 6-foot frame casting a shadow over Keisha's seat. "Look, I fly this route twice a month. I know how these things work. Someone upgraded her for free, and now paying customers suffer." "That's not how," Ashley started. "Call the gate agent," Brad interrupted. "Derek, right? He'll sort this out." Keisha's phone buzzed. The caller ID showed DC area code, but she declined the call without looking up. Her diamond earrings caught the cabin light. Not flashy, but clearly expensive. The kind of jewelry that suggested success earned, not given. 10 minutes until door closure," came the announcement from the cockpit. "Flight attendants, please prepare for departure." Jennifer leaned closer to her phone camera. "You're watching this live, folks. Some people think rules don't apply to them." Her voice carried the tone of someone used to being heard. "I'm documenting everything for airport security." Mike's viewer count hit 50. Comments started flowing. "What's happening? Is someone getting kicked off? Drama!" Derek Williams, the gate agent, appeared at the aircraft door. Mid-40s, tired eyes, the look of someone who'd handled too many situations today. He carried a stack of boarding passes and wore the expression of a man who just wanted to go home. "Folks, I understand there's some confusion about seating." Derek's voice carried practiced calm. Brad pointed directly at Keisha. "This passenger needs to move. She's obviously in the wrong section." "I see." Derek approached Keisha's row, not making eye contact with her initially. "Ma'am, could I see your boarding pass, please?" Keisha handed over the crisp paper without a word. Derek studied it, frowning. "This shows seat 2B first class." "There's obviously been a mistake," Brad insisted. "Run her credit card. Check her frequent flyer status. I guarantee you'll find some kind of discount program." Derek's frown deepened. The boarding pass was legitimate full fare, government credit card, elite status clearly marked. But Brad's presence loomed large, and Jennifer's phone captured every moment. Ma'am, Derek's voice carried reluctant authority, we do have some very comfortable seats available in our main cabin. Perhaps we could— Are you seriously asking her to move? The voice came from 4A, a young black woman traveling with her boyfriend. She has a first-class ticket. Mind your own business, Jennifer snapped, still filming. This doesn't concern you. Keisha spoke for the first time, her voice steady as mountain stone. I'd like to remain in my assigned seat, please. Brad's face reddened. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Derek, I want her removed from this aircraft. She's causing a disturbance. Sir, she hasn't actually— Look around! Brad gestured wildly. Half the cabin is staring. People are filming. This is exactly the kind of chaos that ruins the flying experience for paying customers. Derek glanced around the cabin. Mike's live stream was indeed drawing attention. Other passengers craned their necks. The couple in 1A whispered urgently. The businessman in 3D nodded in apparent agreement with Brad. Aircraft door closure in 5 minutes, the captain announced. We're showing a slight delay for passenger services. The pressure mounted. Derek felt it from multiple directions. Brad's insistence, Jennifer's recording, the schedule pressure, the growing audience. These black stories, these real-life stories of conflict always ended badly for someone. He'd seen it before. Ma'am, Derek tried again, I'm going to need you to gather your belongings and come with me. Jennifer's live stream comment count exploded. Viewers shared the stream. The hashtag #Flight447 drama started appearing in real time. Keisha closed her folder and placed it back in her briefcase. The motion was deliberate, unhurried. She looked directly at Derek for the first time. Before you proceed with that request, she said quietly, I think you should know something. But Derek was already reaching for the overhead bin, his hand on her carry-on bag. Security to Gate 12, came the announcement over the terminal speakers. Security to Gate 12. Brad smiled triumphantly. Finally, someone who enforces policy. The touching stories, the life stories that built character. They often began with moments like this, when dignity met discrimination, when belonging was questioned, when the powerful decided who deserved to stay and who needed to go. But sometimes, just sometimes, those stories took unexpected turns. Security officers James Patterson and Patricia Collins had seen it all in their 15 combined years at JFK. Drunk passengers, medical emergencies, the occasional celebrity meltdown. But racial incidents? Those always left a bitter taste and a mountain of paperwork. What's the situation? James asked Derek, his hand instinctively moving to his radio. Passenger refusing to relocate, Derek explained quickly. The gentleman in 2A requested she be moved to economy. She's resistant. Patricia glanced at Keisha, who sat with the posture of someone accustomed to boardrooms, not boarding disputes. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us. Mike's Instagram live viewer count hit 200. Comments flooded the screen. Here we go. She's about to get dragged. This is wild. He adjusted his phone angle to capture the security approach. Brad stepped back, arms crossed, watching his victory unfold. Finally, some professional handling of the situation. Jennifer kept her phone trained on the scene. I'm posting this everywhere, she announced. Southwest, Delta, everyone needs to see how American Airlines actually handles disruptions. Keisha remained motionless in her seat. Officers, I'd like to understand the legal basis for this removal. Ma'am, you need to comply with crew instructions, James replied, though something in his voice suggested uncertainty. Please stand up and gather your belongings. The businessman in seat 1A, Robert Brooks, ironically no relation to Mike despite sharing a surname, finally spoke up. Look, I don't want to get involved, but I have a connection in Atlanta. Can we just resolve this quickly? His wife nudged him. Robert, don't. Aircraft door closure in 3 minutes, came the captain's voice, edged with irritation. We need immediate resolution at Gate 12. Captain Maria Rodriguez emerged from the cockpit, her uniform crisp, her expression thunderous. 22 years of commercial aviation had taught her that passenger disputes were like cancer. They spread quickly and killed schedules. What's the holdup? She demanded. Derek gestured helplessly. Seating dispute, Captain. We're handling it. Handle it faster. Rodriguez's voice could have cut steel. Every minute costs us our slot. I'm not explaining to operations why we missed departure because of musical chairs. Patricia reached for Keisha's arm. Ma'am, please don't make this difficult. For the first time, Keisha showed emotion, a slight tightening around her eyes. Officer, you're making a mistake. The only mistake, Brad interjected, is taking this long to remove a disruptive passenger. Mike's live stream exploded. Viewer count, 800 and climbing. The comments became a waterfall. Security is removing her. This is discrimination. Get her off the plane. Oh. The digital crowd was as divided as the physical one. Keisha slowly reached for her briefcase. The motion was deliberate, controlled, like someone accessing a weapon they preferred not to use. Before you continue, she said quietly, I need to show you something. Derek shook his head. Ma'am, the time for negotiations has passed. James moved closer. In his experience, when passengers started reaching for documents, they usually produced medical cards, legal threats, or social media follower counts, none of which typically mattered at 30,000 feet. The young couple in 4A exchanged glances. The woman Tiana Brooks pulled out her own phone and started recording. Her boyfriend Marcus, she'd kill him if he knew she was thinking his name right now given the circumstances, whispered, This is about to get ugly. Ashley reappeared with a stack of economy boarding passes. Ma'am, I have some lovely seats in row 23, window and aisle, very comfortable. Row 23? Keisha's eyebrows rose slightly. That's quite a downgrade from what I purchased. Jennifer's voice cut through the tension like a rusty blade. Purchased? Please. We all know how you really got that seat. The cabin fell silent. Even Mike's live stream comments paused for a moment, as if the internet itself was processing the naked racism. Patricia's radio crackled. Security Team Alpha, what's your status? In progress, she responded, then looked at Keisha. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stand up now. Keisha's briefcase sat in her lap, her hand resting on the clasp. The small gold seal near the handle caught the light again. An eagle, wings spread, surrounded by text too small to read from a distance. Captain Rodriguez checked her watch. 2 minutes. I don't care if you carry her off. We're not missing our slot. Brad's satisfaction was palpable. He'd already settled back into his seat, adjusting his seatbelt for takeoff. Thank you, Captain. Some of us actually have important business in Atlanta. Sir, James said to Brad, we appreciate your patience. Mike whispered into his phone for his viewers. Security is about to physically remove this woman from first class. This is insane. The viewer count hit 1,000. Someone had started sharing the stream on TikTok. Flight 447 began trending in real time. Keisha looked directly at James. Officer Patterson, correct? James blinked. She'd read his name tag, but something in her tone suggested she'd remember it long after this flight. Yes, ma'am. Before you remove me from my paid seat, I want you to understand something about federal law. Derek stepped forward. Ma'am, please don't quote internet law to us. We need you to move. Federal law, Keisha repeated, her voice carrying new weight. Specifically Section 44902 of Title 49, United States Code. Patricia frowned. Passengers who quoted specific legal codes usually fell into 2 categories. Lawyers who were bluffing, or people who actually knew what they were talking about. Both were dangerous in different ways. Ma'am, Patricia said carefully. "Are you an attorney?" Keisha's finger traced the edge of her briefcase clasp. "I'm something more relevant to your current situation." The cabin's attention focused like a laser. Mike's live stream comments went wild. "What is she? She knows the law. This is getting good." Robert Brooks leaned forward despite his wife's protests. His legal training from 20 years ago suddenly felt relevant. Brad's confident smirk wavered slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" Captain Rodriguez stepped closer. "Ma'am, whatever your profession, you need to comply with crew instructions or disembark the aircraft." Keisha's thumb moved to the briefcase clasp. The motion was small, almost invisible, but it carried the weight of inevitability. "Captain Rodriguez," she said quietly, "before you authorize my removal, you should know that this incident is being documented by multiple passengers, live-streamed to over 1,000 viewers, and involves the attempted ejection of a federal employee from an aircraft engaged in interstate commerce." The words hung in the air like a live grenade. Derek's face went pale. "Federal employee?" "Moreover," Keisha continued, her voice steady as granite, "American Airlines receives approximately $2.3 billion annually in federal contracts. Your company's diversity and inclusion policies, filed with the Department of Transportation last quarter, specifically prohibit the discriminatory removal of passengers based on racial profiling." Jennifer's phone trembled in her hands. The triumphant live stream was becoming something else entirely. James and Patricia exchanged glances. Federal employee, legal codes, specific contract numbers. This was no longer a simple passenger removal. "Ma'am," James said carefully, "what type of federal employee are you?" Keisha's thumb rested on the briefcase clasp. Around her, the cabin held its breath. Mike's viewer count hit 1,500. The touching stories, the real-life stories that defined American air travel, often hinged on moments like this. "I think," she said quietly, "it's time you found out." The briefcase clasp opened with a soft click that somehow echoed through the cabin like a gunshot. Keisha Washington lifted the leather credential holder with the same precision a surgeon might use to reveal a beating heart. The gold badge caught the overhead lights, its eagle emblem sharp and unmistakable against the dark blue field. "Special Agent Keisha Washington, Federal Bureau of Investigation." Her voice carried new authority, quiet but absolute. "Badge number 14729. The silence that followed was profound. It was the silence of a world shifting on its axis. James Patterson, 15 years of airport security, felt his stomach drop to somewhere near his ankles. His hand moved instinctively away from his radio. Patricia Collins stared at the badge, then at Keisha's face, then back at the badge. Her training kicked in, always verifying federal credentials. But the leather holder, the badge quality, the holographic security features visible even from 3 feet away. This was real. Derek Williams made a sound somewhere between a cough and a prayer. Gate agents didn't get paid enough to forcibly remove FBI agents from aircraft. Mike's Instagram Live exploded. The viewer count shot past 3,000 in 30 seconds. Comments became a digital avalanche. "Holy shit, she's FBI. Brad is so screwed. That's a real badge. This just got real. She's a federal agent." Captain Rodriguez moved closer, her pilot's training overriding her schedule concerns. She'd flown federal agents before, serious people with serious jobs who didn't cause cabin disruptions unless something very serious was happening. "Agent Washington," she said carefully, "I apologize for any confusion." Brad Morrison's face underwent a fascinating transformation. Confident superiority melted into confusion, then dawning horror as the implications crashed over him like a cold wave. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound emerged. Jennifer Morrison's phone trembled in her hands. Her triumphant live stream of problem passenger removal had become something far more dangerous. The delete button suddenly seemed very appealing. "Oh my God," whispered the woman in 4A. Her boyfriend grabbed her hand, both of them staring at the badge in Keisha's steady grip. Ashley, the flight attendant, looked like she might faint. In 6 years of commercial aviation, she'd never been part of a crew that nearly forcibly removed a federal agent. Keisha's voice remained calm, professional. "I'm returning from a counterterrorism briefing in Manhattan. Interagency coordination regarding aviation security threats." Each word fell like a hammer blow. Counterterrorism, aviation security, federal briefing. Robert Brooks, in 1A, corporate lawyer that he was, immediately understood the legal earthquake unfolding 3 rows behind him. Federal agent, civil rights violation, recorded evidence. His company's legal department would have a collective heart attack. "Agent Washington," James managed, his voice hoarse. "We had no idea. We sincerely apologize." Patricia stepped back, creating distance between herself and what was rapidly becoming a federal incident. "Ma'am, if you'd known what?" Keisha's question was surgical in its precision. "If you'd known I was a federal agent, you wouldn't have attempted to remove me from my assigned seat? What about other passengers who aren't federal agents? Do they not deserve the same treatment?" The questions hung in the air like indictments. Brad finally found his voice, but it came out as a croak. I didn't know." Keisha turned her attention to him for the first time since the badge was revealed. Her gaze was steady, measuring. "Mr. Morrison, isn't it? You demanded my removal based on what exactly?" Mike's viewer count hit 5,000. Someone had cross-posted to TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. Hatch at Flight 447 FBI was gaining momentum across platforms. The seat, I thought..." Brad's usual corporate confidence had evaporated completely. "You thought what?" Keisha's voice remained level, but there was steel underneath. "That a black woman couldn't legitimately afford first class? That my presence somehow diminished your travel experience?" Jennifer Morrison frantically swiped at her phone, trying to delete her earlier posts. But the internet is forever, and screenshots were already circulating. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. "Agent Washington, on behalf of American Airlines, I want to formally apologize. This should never have happened." Keisha nodded slightly. "Captain, I appreciate that. But we need to address the larger issue here." She gestured toward her phone, which had been buzzing intermittently. "I've received 4 calls in the past 10 minutes. 3 from colleagues who've seen the live stream, and 1 from my supervisor at the bureau." Derek felt his career flashing before his eyes. Supervisor at the bureau. This was going straight to the top of American Airlines' corporate structure. "The Federal Aviation Administration," Keisha continued, "takes a very serious view of discriminatory practices in commercial aviation, as does the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division." More hammer blows. FAA, DOJ, Civil Rights Division. Patricia's radio crackled with static, but she ignored it. Standard protocol meant documenting everything, but there was nothing standard about this situation. Ashley approached cautiously. "Agent Washington, is there anything at all we can do to make this right?" Before Keisha could answer, her phone rang again. The caller ID showed a 202 area code, Washington, D.C. She answered on the second ring. "Washington. Yes, I'm aware. Currently on board. No, I'm uninjured. Multiple recordings, yes. I'll file a preliminary report within the hour." The one-sided conversation chilled everyone within earshot. Preliminary report. Multiple recordings. The bureaucratic machinery of federal investigation was already grinding into motion. Mike whispered to his live stream audience, "She's talking to FBI headquarters right now. This is unreal." The viewer count passed 8,000. Local news outlets were starting to pick up the hashtag. This was becoming more than viral content. It was becoming national news. Keisha ended the call and looked around the cabin. Her gaze lingered on each person who'd participated in the attempted removal. Derek, James, Patricia, Ashley. Then it moved to Brad and Jennifer, who looked like they wanted to disappear into their leather seats. "Mr. Morrison," she said quietly, "you stated that I was causing a disturbance. Can you explain what behavior of mine constituted a disturbance?" Brad's mouth worked soundlessly. Around him, phones continued recording. Every word, every expression being captured for posterity. "I was sitting quietly in my assigned seat," Keisha continued. "I spoke only when addressed. I made no demands, no complaints, no unreasonable requests. The only disturbance appears to have been my presence in a section you felt I didn't belong in." The analysis was clinical, devastating in its accuracy. Jennifer Morrison finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "We didn't mean... We weren't trying to..." "What weren't you trying to do, Mrs. Morrison?" Keisha's attention shifted to her. "You filmed my attempted removal while commenting that people need to see this. What exactly did you want people to see?" No answer came. The truth was too ugly to voice. Robert Brooks cleared his throat. "Agent Washington, as an attorney, I feel compelled to say that what happened here was completely inappropriate." His wife shot him a warning look, but he continued. "Discrimination based on race is illegal under federal law. The behavior exhibited toward you was unacceptable." Keisha nodded acknowledgement. "Thank you, Mr. Chen." Robert Brooks. "Mr. Brooks, you're correct about the legal issues. This incident involves potential violations of the Civil Rights Act, FAA anti-discrimination regulations, and federal transportation statutes." More legal terminology that made Derek's palms sweat. Captain Rodriguez checked her watch, then made a decision that would ripple through American Airlines' corporate structure. "Agent Washington, I'm going to delay this flight until we can properly address this situation." The announcement sent shockwaves through the cabin. Flight delays meant missed connections, angry passengers, and corporate explanations. But forcibly removing an FBI agent would mean federal investigations, congressional hearings, and career-ending lawsuits. Tiana Brooks in 4A had been recording everything on her phone. She'd watched the entire sequence unfold, from attempted removal to badge reveal to federal phone call. Her footage would soon be evidence in what promised to be a significant civil rights case. "Derek," Captain Rodriguez said firmly, "I need you to contact your supervisor immediately. This goes straight to the corporate." Derek nodded, his face pale. Corporate meant executives, lawyers, crisis management teams. This was about to become someone else's very expensive problem. Keisha's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it, then looked up at the assembled group. "That's my field supervisor," she said calmly. "He's driving to the airport now. He'll want to interview everyone involved before the aircraft departs." The implications sank in like lead weights. FBI supervisor. Formal interviews. Official documentation. Mike's live stream had become a digital town square, with viewers sharing the link across every social platform. #Flight 447 FBI. FBI agent. Had airline discrimination. The hashtags multiplied like wildfire. Brad Morrison sat frozen in his seat, the magnitude of his error finally becoming clear. He'd demanded the removal of a federal agent, on camera, with thousands of witnesses, while investigating aviation security threats. His corporate career had just ended, and he was beginning to understand that might be the least of his problems. "So," Keisha said, settling back into seat 2B with the calm of someone who'd just played a winning hand, "shall we discuss how American Airlines plans to address this situation?" The question wasn't really a question. It was an opening statement in what promised to be a very expensive conversation. The American Airlines crisis management machine activated with the efficiency of a military operation. Within 12 minutes of Captain Rodriguez's call to operations, 3 executives were en route to JFK Terminal 8, Gate 12. Keisha's phone rang again. FBI Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Brooks, no relation to the passenger recording. Everything was 15 minutes out from the airport. His voice carried the weight of someone who'd spent 20 years investigating federal crimes. Agent Washington, I need a preliminary assessment. Scale of 1 to 10. How bad is this? Keisha glanced around the cabin. Mike's live stream had reached 12,000 viewers. Brad Morrison sat in his seat like a statue, while his wife frantically deleted social media posts. Derek, the gate agent, looked like he was contemplating career changes. Solid 8, sir. Attempted removal of a federal agent, recorded by multiple passengers, with clear racial motivation. The passenger who initiated the complaint has a documented history. Documented how? I ran his frequent flyer number while he was demanding my removal. 3 previous complaints were filed against him for discriminatory behavior toward minority passengers. American Airlines has been tracking a pattern. The revelation hit the cabin like a thunderclap. Brad Morrison wasn't just a racist, he was a repeat offender with an institutional paper trail. Captain Rodriguez heard enough of the conversation to understand the implications. She immediately called her chief pilot. John, we have a federal situation. I need to be legal and corporate here now. Within minutes, American Airlines Vice President of Customer Relations Sarah Kim was on a conference call from her Dallas office, while Regional Director Robert Huang raced through Queens traffic toward JFK. Captain Rodriguez, Kim's voice came through the aircraft's communication system. Patch me through to the federal agent. Keisha accepted the phone. Agent Washington speaking. Agent Washington, this is Sarah Kim, VP of Customer Relations. I want to personally apologize for this incident and assure you that American Airlines takes discrimination extremely seriously. Ms. Kim, I appreciate the call. However, this goes beyond individual apologies. We're looking at the systematic failure of your anti-discrimination policies. The corporate response was swift and practiced. Kim had handled crises before, but never one involving federal law enforcement on live stream. What can we do to make this right? Keisha's response was precise, calculated. First, immediate consequences for all parties involved in the attempted removal. Second, review of your passenger complaint procedures, specifically how a customer with multiple discrimination complaints was allowed to continue flying. Third, federal oversight of your diversity training programs. Each demand carried the weight of potential federal intervention. Sarah Kim understood that Keisha wasn't just an angry passenger, she was a federal agent who could initiate Department of Justice investigations. The passenger who initiated the complaint, Kim said carefully, what's his status? Derek, still holding his tablet, read Brad's frequent flyer profile. Mr. Morrison, account number 4847291, executive platinum status, 3 formal complaints in 18 months, all involving minority passengers. 2 were dismissed as misunderstandings, 1 resulted in a written warning. Brad's face went ashen. He'd built his travel status over years, flying twice monthly for business. Now his own airline records were being used as evidence against him. Regional Director Huang arrived at the gate, breathing hard from his sprint through the terminal. A 20-year airline veteran, he'd never dealt with an FBI agent discrimination case while passengers live-streamed to 15,000 viewers. Agent Washington, Huang approached respectfully. I'm Robert Huang, Regional Director. I want to understand exactly what happened here. Keisha gestured toward the overhead monitors showing security camera feeds. Mr. Huang, I assume this aircraft has security recording systems? Yes, ma'am. All interactions are recorded. Then you have documentation of Mr. Morrison's demands for my removal, the crew's response, and the attempted physical intervention by security personnel. Huang's stomach dropped. Security recordings meant corporate liability, legal exposure, and federal evidence. This was becoming a textbook case for civil rights attorneys. Mike's live stream comments revealed the broader impact. American Airlines stock is down 2% in after-hours trading. This is going to be a huge lawsuit. FBI versus American Airlines. Sarah Kim's voice came through the phone again. Agent Washington, Regarding immediate consequences, we're prepared to take significant action. Specify significant, please. The pause was telling. Corporate lawyers were clearly conferencing in the background. Mr. Morrison's executive platinum status will be immediately revoked, along with a permanent ban from American Airlines services. Mrs. Morrison will be required to complete cultural sensitivity training before flying with us again. Brad Morrison finally found his voice. You can't ban me. I fly 200,000 miles a year with this airline. Huang turned to him, his voice professionally cold. Mr. Morrison, you attempted to have a federal agent removed from an aircraft based on racial discrimination. Your frequent flyer status is the least of your concerns. Jennifer Morrison spoke up, her voice shaking. We didn't know she was FBI. We just thought... What did you think, Mrs. Morrison? Keisha's question cut through the cabin noise. That my race disqualified me from first-class seating? No answer came because the truth was legally indefensible. Keisha's supervisor called back. Agent Washington, I'm at the airport, Terminal 8, correct? Yes, sir. Gate 12. The situation is contained, but we'll need formal statements from all parties. Understood. I'm bringing Assistant Director Martinez from our Civil Rights Division. This is going federal. Assistant Director Martinez, Civil Rights Division. The bureaucratic artillery was arriving. Captain Rodriguez made an announcement to the increasingly restless passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a delay due to a security matter. We appreciate your patience. The euphemism was necessary, but Mike's live stream had already told the real story to 20,000 viewers. The traditional media was picking up the hashtags. CNN's Twitter account had posted, FBI agent allegedly discriminated against on American Airlines flight story developing. Sarah Kim's voice returned. Agent Washington, what timeline are we looking at for resolution? That depends on American Airlines' willingness to implement systemic changes. This isn't just about one incident, it's about institutional failure to prevent discrimination despite documented patterns. The corporate implications were staggering. Federal oversight meant congressional hearings, DOJ monitoring, and quarterly compliance reports. American Airlines' stock price would reflect the true cost of discrimination. Derek's radio crackled. Gate 12, this is operations. Media crews are requesting access to the terminal. How should we respond? The story had broken into mainstream news. Television crews, radio reporters, digital journalists, all converging on JFK to cover the FBI agent discrimination case. Huang looked at Keisha. Agent Washington, we need to discuss this privately. The media attention is... Mr. Huang, the media attention is the natural consequence of discriminatory practices. American Airlines created this situation by failing to address Mr. Morrison's previous complaints. The logic was unassailable. 3 documented complaints, pattern of behavior, institutional failure to act. American Airlines had enabled the discrimination that led to this moment. Brad Morrison's phone rang. His corporate office undoubtedly responding to the viral videos and news coverage. He declined the call, but the damage was spreading beyond the aircraft. Agent Washington, Sarah Kim said through the phone, we're prepared to implement immediate policy changes, real-time discrimination reporting, federal oversight of our diversity programs, and quarterly civil rights audits. Each concession represented millions in compliance costs, but the alternative federal investigation, congressional oversight, and civil rights lawsuits would cost far more. Keisha's supervisor appeared at the aircraft door, accompanied by a woman in a sharp business suit who carried the unmistakable authority of senior federal law enforcement. Agent Washington, the woman said, I'm Assistant Director Martinez, Civil Rights Division. We need to discuss federal intervention protocols. The phrase sent chills through every American Airlines employee present. Federal intervention meant Department of Justice oversight, congressional hearings, and potential criminal charges for civil rights violations. Mike's live stream hit 25,000 viewers. The comment stream had become a digital civil rights rally. Justice for Agent Washington. Hold American Airlines accountable. This is systemic racism. Brad Morrison sat in his seat, understanding that his demand for Keisha's removal had triggered a federal civil rights investigation. His corporate career was over. His airline privileges were gone. His social media presence would be forever linked to viral racism, but the broader implications were just beginning to unfold. "Ms. Kim," Keisha said into the phone, her voice carrying quiet authority, "American Airlines now has a choice: voluntary compliance with federal civil rights oversight or mandatory intervention by the Department of Justice." The ultimatum hung in the air like a legal sword of Damocles. Sarah Kim's response came quickly. "We choose voluntary compliance, Agent Washington. Full cooperation with federal oversight." The corporate capitulation was complete, but the real work systemic change in American aviation was just beginning. 6 weeks later, the ripple effects of Flight 447 had transformed American commercial aviation. Brad Morrison's termination from Morrison Financial Group made headlines in the Wall Street Journal. His LinkedIn profile now read, "Former Vice President," a digital scarlet letter that followed him through every job application. The viral videos of his demands to remove a federal agent had become case studies in business schools across the country. Jennifer Morrison's court-mandated community service at the Queen's Civil Rights Coalition provided a different kind of education. 40 hours of sensitivity training and 200 hours of community service taught her what privilege looked like from the other side. Her public apology video, posted on the same Facebook account where she'd live-streamed Keisha's attempted removal, garnered 3 million views and became a template for authentic accountability. Derek Williams faced a different reckoning. His 2-week suspension without pay was accompanied by enrollment in American Airlines' new Federal Law Enforcement Liaison Training, a program created specifically because of Flight 447. He learned that federal agents fly commercial aircraft 2.7 million miles annually on official business, and discrimination against them constitutes federal obstruction of justice. But the individual consequences were only the beginning. American Airlines' voluntary compliance agreement with the Department of Justice created the most comprehensive anti-discrimination monitoring system in aviation history. The AirWatch app, developed in partnership with the NAACP and launched system-wide, allowed passengers to report discrimination incidents in real time. Anonymous reporting meant protection for witnesses, while automatic escalation protocols ensured immediate corporate response. The technology was revolutionary. Passengers could document incidents with time-stamped photos, audio recordings, and witness statements that were uploaded directly to federal oversight servers. Within 60 days of launch, the app had processed over 400 discrimination reports across all major airlines, proving that Flight 447 wasn't isolated, but symptomatic. Captain Rodriguez, promoted to Chief of Flight Operations after her decisive handling of the crisis, implemented new crew training protocols. Every American Airlines employee now completed quarterly bias awareness education, with federal monitors randomly auditing training sessions. The program became so effective that United, Delta, and Southwest adopted similar systems voluntarily rather than wait for federal mandates. The financial impact was significant but sustainable. American Airlines' quarterly diversity compliance budget increased to $12 million annually, but the alternative federal investigations and civil rights lawsuits would have cost exponentially more. Stock analysts noted that proactive compliance actually improved long-term profitability by preventing discrimination-related legal exposure. Mike Brooks's Instagram live recording of the incident became the most watched civil rights documentation in social media history. His 25,000 live viewers had grown to over 50 million total views across platforms. He parlayed the viral moment into a digital activism career, launching the Accountability Airways channel that monitored discrimination in travel and transportation. But the most significant change was systemic. The Federal Aviation Administration, responding to congressional pressure and DOJ recommendations, issued new regulations requiring all commercial airlines to implement bias monitoring systems. The Keisha Washington Protocol, officially designated as Federal Aviation Regulation 121.3, mandated that passenger complaints alleging discrimination be automatically escalated to federal oversight within 4 hours. Regional Director Robert Huang, initially terrified by the federal scrutiny, discovered that transparency actually improved operations. Monthly discrimination incident reports, published on American's website, showed steady decreases in bias-related complaints. Passengers appreciated the accountability, and employee morale improved when discrimination wasn't tolerated. Tiana Brooks and her boyfriend Marcus Johnson, the young couple who'd witnessed everything from row 4A, became advocates for bystander intervention training. Their foundation, Speak Up in the Sky, trained airline passengers to safely document and report discrimination incidents. The program expanded beyond aviation to address bias in hotels, restaurants, and other public accommodations. The broader aviation industry transformed rapidly. Southwest Airlines proactively implemented bias monitoring after their stock price dropped 3% the day Flight 447 went viral. Delta launched a partnership with the Southern Poverty Law Center for Discrimination Prevention Training. JetBlue created an ombudsman program specifically for civil rights complaints. Most importantly, the culture changed. Flight attendants received training on recognizing discrimination versus legitimate security concerns. Gate agents learned de-escalation techniques that addressed conflicts without defaulting to passenger removal. Security personnel completed federal law enforcement interaction protocols. The numbers told the story. Before Flight 447, American Airlines averaged 18 discrimination complaints monthly, with 72% dismissed as misunderstandings. 6 months after implementation of the Washington Protocol, monthly complaints dropped to 4, with 100% receiving formal investigation and resolution. Keisha Washington returned to her FBI duties, specializing in civil rights investigations within transportation systems. She testified before Congress about institutional discrimination in commercial aviation. Her badge number, 104729, becoming shorthand for federal accountability in travel discrimination cases. Her quiet professionalism during the crisis, refusing to escalate beyond what the situation demanded, became a model for effective civil rights advocacy. She'd achieved systemic change without raising her voice, filing lawsuits, or demanding individual revenge. The lesson resonated beyond aviation. Institutional change happened when preparation met opportunity, when knowledge confronted ignorance, and when dignity defeated discrimination. American Airlines Flight 447 never reached Atlanta that evening, but it carried its passengers somewhere far more important toward a future where belonging wasn't determined by the color of your skin, but by the content of your ticket. Today, Agent Keisha Washington continues her work at the FBI's Civil Rights Division, but her impact extends far beyond federal law enforcement. Her calm response to attempted removal created a blueprint for turning discrimination into systemic change. Without anger, without violence, simply with knowledge, preparation, and quiet dignity. The touching stories that emerge from moments like Flight 447 remind us that real-life stories don't always follow Hollywood scripts. Sometimes, the most powerful victories happen not through confrontation, but through competence. Not through retaliation, but through revelation. Keisha's badge reveal wasn't just about individual vindication, it was about institutional transformation. Her professional credentials gave her a platform that most passengers don't have, but her strategy can be replicated by anyone who faces discrimination. Document everything. Know your rights. Maintain dignity under pressure. Use existing systems to create change. The Black stories that define American progress often pivot on moments when ordinary people reveal extraordinary strength. Rosa Parks wasn't seeking fame when she refused to give up her seat. Ruby Bridges wasn't trying to become a symbol when she walked into that school. Keisha Washington wasn't planning to become a civil rights icon when she booked seat 2B. But all three understood that individual acts of courage can spark institutional change. Flight 447's legacy lives on in every discrimination report filed through the AirWatch app, every bias training session conducted for airline employees, every passenger who speaks up when they witness unfair treatment. The live stream that was meant to humiliate Keisha became the evidence that transformed an entire industry. Mike Brooks's 50 million views proved that social media can be a tool for justice when wielded responsibly. But views without action are just entertainment. Real change requires people willing to move beyond watching discrimination to actively preventing it. The life stories that matter most are the ones that create paths for others to follow. Keisha's story isn't unique discrimination in transportation, retail, dining, and hospitality happens daily across America. But her response was unique, strategic, professional, and focused on systemic solutions rather than personal revenge. Every week, the Black Voices Uncut channel receives messages from people who've used Keisha's model to address their own discrimination experiences. A teacher removed from a restaurant. A doctor questioned me in a luxury store. A lawyer challenged at a hotel. All drew inspiration from watching quiet competence defeat loud prejudice. These real-life stories of resistance and resilience deserve our attention, our support, and our action. They remind us that change doesn't require superhuman abilities, just human dignity, preparation, and the courage to stand up for what's right. Your voice matters in these conversations. Have you witnessed discrimination in travel, dining, or public spaces? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be the one that sparks the next wave of positive change. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more stories of ordinary people creating extraordinary change through courage, competence, and quiet strength. Share this video if you believe that dignity deserves respect, that preparation empowers progress, and that the best response to discrimination is systematic transformation. Together, we can ensure that everyone has the right to belong exactly where they've earned the right to be.